Alright, so you want to live in Japan? Here's how I went in 3 days from munching on a great sausage roll in Newcastle airport to living here in Japan with a roof over my head, a stable job, and what put me on the path to still be living here a decade later. It worked for me, it might work for you, so I thought I'd share it with you. We've got a bit of a list to work through, but the first thing on our list is getting a visa. Now, there are many different visas to choose from, but which visa is the best one for you? Anyone that comes to Japan can get a tourist visa when they arrive. The visa length changes from country to country. Some countries are a month, some might be 3 months. I'm from the UK, so if you're from the UK, you get a 3-month visa when you arrive here. America's the same. Some other places might be a little bit shorter, some a little bit longer, you never know. And many people actually decide to come to Japan on a tourist visa, just trying their luck and see if they can find a job. But that's risky as hell, because 3 months later, you might not have even found a job, and you're gonna go back home a bit penniless. For me, I'm English, so I could get what's called a working holiday visa. Loads of different countries all around the world offer working holiday visas, and they're usually good for 1 year for people in their 20s or even sometimes up into their 30s. This visa is valid for a year, and it's usually quite easy to get your hands on it. I'm going to have some do's and don'ts later on in this video about how to get your working holiday visa. Now, Japan's one country that offers a working holiday visa, so after I'd saved up £2,500, I jumped on the megabus from Newcastle up to Edinburgh, and I went to the Japanese consulate and applied for my working holiday visa. And within a few weeks, I had it issued to me. But £2,500 isn't going to get you far. Flights alone from Newcastle to Japan were around 700 quid. When I got here, I barely had enough to survive for a month. So that's when finding a job becomes really important. And this is how I went and found mine. Now, it's always going to be harder finding a job in Japan when you are outside of Japan. Unfortunately, companies usually need their teachers quickly, as there are a lot of bad teachers in Japan. But it's not always the teacher's fault. There are also lots of really bad companies in Japan, and they have awful turnovers of teachers. Luckily though, because of that, there's also lots of different opportunities to get different jobs in Japan. There's always openings available. So for the time being, I just really needed to find a job to see me through the first few months of my life here in Japan. So I got myself on job hunting sites. The biggest one here is called Gaijinpot. I made a CV, I set my location as Japan despite still being in Newcastle and having nowhere to live when I eventually did get to Japan. I sent tons of applications to different companies all over the area of Osaka. And then when they got back to me, I just told them a date that I would actually be in Japan and I arranged an interview. So I had job interviews lined up, but what was I going to do about a place to live? When I went to an interview, I'd always research the closest hostels or share houses around the area. And when I went to the interview, I'd tell them that that's where I was living. I'd always make sure they had a room available for me, but I'd never make any promises to move in there. I didn't want to cause any harm to these businesses. I came to Japan on the 19th of March 2014. By the 22nd, I already had 3 different job offers and potentially 3 different places to live. The base salaries were all similar, which unfortunately hasn't changed in this decade I've been here in Japan. So I ended up just choosing the job that was closest to the local share house. After 3 months of working in this place, I'd finally saved enough money to actually move out of that share house and go into my own apartment. And of course with that, I had to find a new job. So I searched again on Gaijinpot to try and find a job that offered sponsorship. And when I found one, I went to the interview, said I was thinking about moving from my area to this area. They helped me find an apartment. I started working for them, and at the tail end of my working holiday, they helped me apply for my certificate of eligibility, which is the first step to getting a working visa in Japan. But here's a few warnings. Some things I wouldn't do, and some things you definitely should not do if you're going to do the same kind of thing as me. Don't waste your time looking at ALT jobs. ALT jobs are assistant language teacher jobs. Basically, you're alongside a Japanese English language teacher in a Japanese classroom, like a primary school or a secondary school. They require their own special visa called an instructor visa, and you won't be able to work on that on a working holiday visa. And number 2, listen closely, because this is something that you might think is a good thing to say at your interview, but really it's not. If you've got some connections, if you've got some friends, if you've got a job lined up before you come to Japan on your working holiday, before you go to apply for your working holiday, do not bring it up. There are other gateways to get to Japan from abroad when you've already got a job lined up. That would be getting a working visa in your home country. If you've got a job lined up and you mention that, the embassy will probably refuse your visa and tell you to go through the proper channels. You're doing nothing illegal by getting a job before you come on your working holiday. That's absolutely fine. You can do almost any type of work on a working holiday visa, but just don't bring it up because it's not worth it. So I hope you found this video informative, if not a little bit funny about how desperate I was when I was 19 to get out in the big wide world and sow my own oats. But I've been here a decade now and I've enjoyed every moment of it. As of making this video, I still only have 10 subscribers on this channel, as I've only done shorts and I've never done a full-length video before. But I have a really exciting video coming soon where I visit an American cult in Japan. I'm going to play the intro for that coming up after this, but please hit subscribe and enjoy the video. Alright, Jody in Japan. True, kid.
America, land of the free, home of the brave, the separation of church and state and the biggest economy in the world. The US is a country that's brought us some of the most recognizable icons known to man. American exports are found everywhere in the world, bringing us McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Disneyland, Hollywood movies, some of the best musicians to have ever lived, and unless you're hanging out in North Korea, you've absolutely seen the influence that the US of AS had on the world, and that's definitely the case for Japan. In the aftermath of World War II, some of the biggest American brands and companies became well known and beloved by the Japanese natives. So what could go wrong?
Boulder County Sheriff acknowledged this week that the property connected to a religious sect is part of the Marshall Fire investigation. That group is called 12 Tribes. It's been the subject of scrutiny over the years.